Here's a video about splices for WinBidPro version 16. And the first thing we want to do is create a tall elevation that requires splices. So we've got the Arcadia catalog open, and I picked a T500 curtain wall system for this catalog. And let's go ahead and create an elevation real quick so that we can see how the program's going to handle splices. And let's say the width is, so we've got 10 panels. Let's say the width is 26 feet and the height is 30 feet. And of course, you can do inches and feet and fractions and decimals when you enter all these values. So you can see right now, it drew the elevation with some splices already. Now, if you get a prompt, if you haven't done splices before and you get a prompt that says, do you want the program to automatically add splices? There's also a prompt there or a checkbox that says, do you want them to add just for this job or for all jobs from here on out? So you might see that prompt if you haven't done anything with splices yet. But in our case, it's automatically adding them already. And I can actually go to the Splices tab here down at the bottom and see what it's doing. Now you'll notice there's different splice for the vertical 0, which is actually the left wall jamb. And if I zoom in, I can see that something's different about it. The colors are a little opposite of what we're seeing for an intermediate vertical. And that's because I've changed the configuration of the splice joint. So let's go to the elevations tab and look at that and how it's done. So I'm editing the elevation framing system. So remember, this is only changing this elevation for this job. And you can do the same thing under catalogs to change the main catalog framing systems as well. And that way, anytime you create a new job, those changes will show up automatically. Right now, it's only going to affect this job in itself. So I'm going to go to the Components tab. I'm going to go down to, since I already did the left jamb, let's go ahead and edit the vertical assembly. So inside here, there is a Splices tab. So we want to click that. And this is where I can add hardware like sleeves and whatever other hardware is needed for each splice joint. So anytime there's a splice joint, the program knows to pull the parts from here and quantify them in your parts list. So down here, though, is the configure splice gap and offset. So remember how the drawing showed a slight difference in those splice joints? It's because I switched them from being offset up to offset down. And it's starting from the back member with a 1/2 inch joint. And then from there, from the center line of that joint to the center line of the pressure plate joint, it's 1 inch offset. And there's the same 1/2 inch joint between the component cuts. So that's how you can kind of manipulate the gap and where the splice falls on that member. So remember, it's under Splices and then configure splice gap and offset. And again, you can add your parts here just by clicking and typing a part number, or you can browse the parts for the list for each splice location. So we're going to hit OK. And now we'll see, if we go back to our drawing, we can see, okay, the configuration is the same as the left jamb for all the intermediate verticals. But since I haven't changed the right jamb yet, we notice that the offset's different and the colors are kind of opposite. So the colors represent the back member, the pressure plate, and the face cover. So that's how that works. Now, if we wanted to change and manually enter some splices, even though it's automatically done it, I can actually disable the automatically splicing temporarily. And for the rest of these members here, let's say I want that splice to be different on the left jamb for some reason. I can actually add a splice that is for the vertical material. And this is where you can add horizontal and head and sill splices as well. But let's do this one real quick and then we'll see. So let's say I need it at 200 inches. And it's showing me a line at where that's going to fall on the drawing, which is nice. So I can save that. But I want it to be not vertical 0. Let's say I want to leave that one. I can edit that number out and then I can save. So now it's showing me the original auto splice in vertical 0, the left jamb, and then it's showing me all the intermediates and the right jamb at the 200 inches. Now, if I wanted to, for some reason, add head and sill splices, let's say they were continuous head and sills, which you can actually change back in that vertical assembly as well, that you can tell it that you want the verticals to not interrupt the head and sill. Then you can actually splice all those members there, configure the joints the same way in the splice tab of those assemblies. So that's how that works. Now, you'll notice one different thing about the horizontal splices is there's no back member capability for horizontal splices, because typically your horizontals are going to be interrupted by verticals, but we do allow you to have continuous horizontals, but just keep in mind that your continuous horizontal should always be less than a stock length, because it can't splice a back member if it's longer than a stock length. So that's just something to keep in mind. But you'll also notice for horizontals, we give you the ability to place the splice real easily just by clicking an icon. And if we zoom in, you'll see it's left side of vertical, center, and right side or center of panel. Or of course, you can enter a value. So that's how that works. But basically, between auto splicing and manually splicing, you're covering all your needs for, and even configuring your splices and adding the hardware, you're covering every kind of situation for splicing material in your elevations. That's pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in.